it's great to welcome you all to Microsoft Reactor. This is going to be an amazing Microsoft Reactor session because, as always, you have the opportunity to learn about skills that can help you to develop your career, whether you're starting off in tech or you are looking to dive into technology. A couple of things to take note of while on this stream. Please be aware of others, be welcoming and respectful, be friendly and patient, and be open to all questions and viewpoints. Understand that people are different and so be understanding of differences. And don't forget to be kind and considerate of others. This is another episode of a series known as Developer Relations for Students. And the goal of this series is to help students and those who are starting off their career in technology to have access to the tools that they need to be able to build an amazing career and succeed in their tech journey. This program is exclusively for students, Microsoft Learn student ambassadors. And aside things like this, they also get the opportunity to access Microsoft technologies, access to Microsoft employees, and a number of other benefits. But we wanted to be kind and share, and so we're extending it to every single person who has the opportunity to join this stream. If you love to be part of the Microsoft Learn Student Ambassadors program, please be sure to use the link that is currently showing on this screen, aka.ms/join MLSA program. A few details about this series. This is currently the fourth session in the series. The first session, which was exclusive to Microsoft Learn student ambassadors, we taught them how they can create an amazing social media presence for themselves and go on to access opportunities as a Microsoft Learn student ambassador. And then the next session was publicly available to everyone who spoke about how they can utilize storytelling when handling technical presentations. Our next session, also exclusive to Microsoft Learn student ambassadors, taught them how they can make impact and go on to empower others in their different institutions. And in this session, we'll be talking about storytelling, but this time for non-technical sessions. Our speaker for this session is an amazing person who has had the opportunity of empowering my team to become great storytellers. Again, the title of this session is The Art of Storytelling, and Maddy Epstein would be heading this session. She's a senior communications manager at Microsoft and works alongside the next generation experiences team at Microsoft, helping the next generation of students to fall in love with Microsoft and Microsoft technologies. Besides that, she has also had the opportunity to work with several Microsoft executives on their communication platform, as well as sharing her amazing experience, storytelling, public relations, and public speaking trainings. We're glad to have you join us. Thank you very much, so much, Maddy, for being on today's call. And at this point, I would pass it over to Maddy so she can dive in and share the beautiful insight she has for us.
Okay, hoping that you can hear and see me. So my name is Maddy Epstein, and I'm going to speak about the art of storytelling as Jefflet introduced now. To start off by telling you a personal story. So about 2 months ago, my grandfather passed away, and it was March 24th, and it was a hard day. He was one of the he was the fourth longest serving judge in California's history and an incredible man and an incredible grandfather. And I flew down to Los Angeles to be with my family for his funeral and to just be with my family. And of course, eulogies are so difficult to write. And my dad had just completed writing his eulogy. It was, of course, hard to write, and he was done, and he announced he was just going to give a quick read through, and then the power went out. And something to remember about this story is he was sitting at an old school desktop computer. So the power was out and he couldn't access the Word document that he was writing because you can't do that on a desktop computer. So, of course, we're like, oh no, this is gone. The eulogy is gone. And 4 hours later, the power came back on, and Microsoft Autosave had recovered the document. So it was one of these moments that technology really saved the day here. And because autosave worked, the eulogy was there, and it was such a helpful reminder of what technology can do to really save the day here. And so, uh, now that I've shared that personal story about me, I will back up and introduce myself. So, as Jaflet mentioned earlier, my name is Maddy Epstein. I'm a senior communications manager at Microsoft. And I'd like to talk about the art of storytelling. And one important thing to remember is that to be a good storyteller, you also have to be a good public speaker. So today we're going to talk about 5 tips that have worked. That was 10. 5 tips that have worked well for me throughout my career. And yeah, so I think let's just jump right in. So, the first thing that we want to talk about is brainstorming and thinking about why a good story is so important. And the reason that they're so important is because they have a tremendous amount of power. So, as one of my favorite public speaking professors from college, shared with me, storytelling is how we get people to remember things that they haven't necessarily seen or experienced themselves, but things that we're telling them. So, storytelling is how we get people to see things that they weren't there for, to understand experiences that they themselves haven't had, and how to remember what it is that you're telling them. The other thing about stories that's really powerful is research shows that humans have about an 8.25-second attention span. So that's not very long. Everyone is multitasking. People are really busy. So storytelling is how we break through all of the different things that people are busy doing and get them to focus on things that we are telling them. So even if you may not have used the audio feature in Microsoft Word, maybe from the story that I shared with you, you're able to understand how much that feature saved the day and how important it is. And then the last thing you want to do when you're brainstorming what story you should tell is be really strategic. So John Papa gave another talk in the series about storytelling also, and he really he told this story about Thomas Edison and pushing the right button. And this is all about being very strategic about what story are you telling and making sure that you're telling the right type of story. So you want to be strategic here. And one way you can do this is think about at the end of my story or the end of my presentation, I want my audience to think or remember what. So for me, it was to remember that a story can be impactful, or it could be that autosave is a really helpful feature, or it could be that you're an expert in your field. And so the story you want to talk about demonstrates that. So you want to really outline and be very strategic about what type of story are you going to tell. So stories are very powerful. You want to be strategic about them. And the next tip that I've got for you is how to get to that point that you can build out the story that you're going to tell people. And the way you do this is by asking a lot of questions. So tip number 2 is ask a lot of questions and be very, very curious. So the first bucket of questions here is general questions. So why are you telling this story in the first place? Or why are you giving this presentation? Is it to help show people that you're an expert in something? And if it is, then maybe understand, okay, what is it that I can talk about that would help these people understand I'm really, really smart about this and I really know what I'm talking about? Or if you're trying to inform people, then you might want to think, okay, where are they starting and what am I trying to get them to and how can I really get them there? And you might be really step by step if your goal is to inform them. Or is it for a grade, in which case you want to understand the rubric that you're being graded against so that you can make sure you're meeting all the criteria to get the grade that you want. So these general questions are really helpful to think about. And the next bucket of questions is how to be successful. These are also just a few of the many, many, many questions that I would recommend that you think through. So thinking about what does the rest of the event look like? Or if you're giving some type of speech or presentation, are there other speeches or presentations that you can look at that were really awesome that you can help base yours on? Or is there anything that you should keep in mind? And I think this bucket is really helpful if you feel nervous about telling a story or doing any kind of presentation or public speaking. This can be really helpful if you know how to be successful and the purpose of your story and your speech. It'll really help calm your nerves on the day of that you have to go do this. And then the last bucket here is about your audience. So, who are you speaking to, and how many people are you speaking to? And is there something that they need to understand from what you're talking about? So, if it's to inform, and you want to inform someone how to do a Windows update, you need to think about as you're crafting your story or you're crafting your presentation, what are those specific steps and what do they specifically need to understand versus a completely different audience, because it could be different. And audience is so important that it actually is tip number 3 here, which is that your audience comes first. Audience comes first. So audience is everything in terms of how you tell the story, what story you're telling, your mannerisms while you're telling it, what you're saying. Audience is everything. So also keep in mind that what your audience wants to hear could be different than what you want to tell them. So you want to start by trying to put yourself in their shoes and thinking about what they're curious to know, what skills do they want to build, and what's important to them, because you can't just get people to listen to whatever you're saying. You have to earn their attention. So one thing about this is we've talked a little bit about tailoring your message to your audience, and I'll give you an example. So let's say that your talk is meant to help someone understand how to push through a Windows update. So that's what you're tasked with helping someone do. You might explain this very differently to the chief technology officer at Microsoft than you would to someone that's never seen a computer before, right? So this is an example of the same topic, but you would say it in two very different ways, hopefully, right? And then again, remember attention is earned. And so the way that you keep your audience engaged with that 8.25 attention span can be slowing down and saying something like this. And that'll help cue them to really listen, or to be animated and use your hands like this as you're speaking. One, things like that. Or you're talking really fast like this, it might be hard for someone to continue to listen to you for a really long time. So you want to change the way you're talking, vocal variation, your volume, how fast you're speaking. All of those are different delivery tactics that will help your audience stay engaged as you're talking. Now that we've talked a little bit about audience and the type of story that you would want to tell to make sure that it's super strategic, we're going to end, of course, we're going to talk about how to craft a message into a format that you can use. And this is another thing that I learned from my favorite public speaking professor in college, Matt McGarity. He's got some public speaking courses on Coursera that you can take if you'd like to learn more. I highly recommend it. And so this that we're going to walk through is a go-to speech that he taught me that I use throughout my career all the time. And you can use this format in a variety of different occasions. So first, what I'm going to do is put the format up on the slide so that you can see the outline of what it looks like. And then I'm going to go through and give you an example using the format. So that'll really help you understand how to use it. So here we go. Okay. So the beginning of this go-to speech is your introduction. So you say what you're going to say, and then you've got 2 main points. Then you begin with main point 1 that supports what you're going to say. And then you give 2 different, either proof or a story or a fact that helps support this main point 1. Then you use a transition that recaps main point 1 and tells your listener that you're going to go to main point 2. Then you explain main point 2, again with the 2 different supporting facts or evidence or a story. And then you do a conclusion which recaps all of this nicely together. So now I'm going to give the example. And while I'm talking, I want you to look at this format and try and piece together how what I'm saying fits into this outline. Okay, so my goal is going to be, and let's see if I'm successful here, is to try to persuade you to watch something that my team here at Microsoft has been working a lot on, which is the Imagine Cup competition. And the timing of this is great because our Imagine Cup World Championship show is happening May 23rd at Microsoft Build at 8:30 a.m. PT. So we're in the final push to it. So I'm going to try to convince you to watch that. And before I do this, also, I'll explain that the Imagine Cup competition is Microsoft's global student developer competition where competitors are dreaming and getting really creative and start to build some type of technology that will improve other people's lives. Okay, so here we go. So I'm going to give my speech and follow on this format. Okay, so you should watch the Imagine Cup World Championship show for two main reasons. First, because it's entertaining, and second, because it's inspiring. So I'm going to start off by explaining to you why the show will be so entertaining. So the first reason that the show is going to be so exciting and entertaining is because the talent is incredible and the passion is on display and the stakes are really high. So it's been a bracket style competition. If you like these sorts of TV shows, you'll love this. And now you're just getting to tune in and watch the top three teams. So the best of the best. You're competing from around the world and they're pouring their hearts in and their minds in and working day and night on this. The top three teams in their last area here to see who's going to win $100,000 a mentoring session with Microsoft CEO and Chairman Satya Nadella. So the passion here is on display. And the second reason that the show will be really entertaining is because this year we have two phenomenal hosts. We have Kosua, who works at Microsoft, she's amazing. And we also have a TikTok influencer, Darren Lynn, who you may know from Lab Shenanigans. And he is a celebrity you should definitely keep an eye out for. He's incredible, and you will not want to miss this show. It's going to be very entertaining. So now that we've talked about why Imagine Cup is going to be incredibly entertaining, I'm also going to explain to you why it will be inspiring. So the first reason that Imagine Cup will be inspiring is because you get to experience what technology can do to help improve other people's lives. And I cry every year during the World Champion show because it's amazing. I feel so inspired. You get to see projects such as how AI can help diseases in people, or a project that was a collaborative map that would help rescue teams find people that were trapped in rubble after an earthquake in Haiti. So these projects are really inspiring and they remind us what's possible when people work together and use technology to help us solve some of the world's greatest challenges. And the second reason that Imagine Cup is so inspiring is because of the people that are competing. So the people that are competing in this are students. They're students exactly like you. And they're people that are creating the next innovation that our world may not be able to live without. And it's such an inspiring reminder that we need the next generation of developers to create this type of technology. And we need you to be doing this. So please compete. In addition to watching it, please compete and use your brains and your talent and your heart to try to use technology to help our world. So now that I've shared why Imagine Cup will be entertaining and inspiring, I really encourage you all to watch. And again, the Imagine Cup World Championship show will be hosted during Microsoft Build on May 23rd at 8:30 a.m. PT. And you can learn more at imaginecup.com. So please watch it. I'm really excited. Okay, that's the end of that. So that was me using this outline here. And something I did too in the conclusion was I added in a call to action. So what do I want my audience to do? And I'm just going to call that out really clearly. So again, you can thank Professor Matt McGarity for this outline here. um, and use it. You can think about this for tons of different occasions. If you are trying to explain to someone, why are you qualified for a job? I'm qualified for this job for two main reasons. One, I'm experienced. Two, um, you know, I align with the mission of this organization, and then go through and use this format. You could use it to explain if your manager put you on the spot, like, hey, Robert, do you agree with what Gary just said? You could say, I agree with Gary for two main reasons. One, because blank, and two, because blank. So you can use this in a ton of different occasions if you're feeling like you need to think really quickly or give an impromptu speech, or if you want to give a longer speech, you can use this format as well. And again, you can use a story as one of these proof points, or a fact, anything you want there that helps support that main point. Okay, great. So this was a big one. So, and then we have our last tip here, which is, now that we've talked about, how to kind of craft your message in a clear way, I'm going to talk a little bit about delivery of your presentation or your story. So the biggest tip that I could give you about this is to watch yourself. So the thing that will make the biggest difference for you is doing one dry run, and not just like mumbling through your outline, but really like set your screen up exactly as you would, begin at the very beginning, end at the very end, go through the entire thing as if you were presenting it. And we have found that this is the biggest thing you can do to increase how fantastic your story or speech will be. It'll also calm your nerves a lot. So just recording yourself one time through your speech will make you twice as good. So a 50% increase here is doing this one time. And then if you really want to increase how good your story or presentation or public speaking is, record yourself giving full talk and watch yourself. So evaluate yourself. Pretend you're someone else, watch yourself speak and evaluate. Hmm, when Matt was talking, her eyes were over here and she wasn't looking at the camera. Or Matt was speaking really about this and needs to pause, which I admit I actually should have paused. But going through, you'll notice things yourself, even if you're not an expert in it. Catch them, because we're all talking to people all the time. You know what it feels like to listen to someone that's giving an incredible speech or an incredible story. You know, like, what's good and what's not. Your intuition is right. So watch yourself, record yourself, and really think through academically, do you understand what you're saying? Are you engaged with what you're saying? Does the flow make sense? You know what? Maybe I'll move this to this part. You'll catch all these things if you record yourself and watch it. And then lastly, while you're doing this, keep a growth mindset and be compassionate. So our CEO at Microsoft, Satya Nadella, talks a lot about a growth mindset. I love this phrase. So thinking about how you can fail quickly and learn from that. So if your first dry run is awful, that's okay. Your next one will be a lot better, I promise. So just be compassionate. It can be a little like, ugh, like difficult to watch yourself speak, but just have a growth mindset. Know that you're going to keep getting better. You're building the skill, and be compassionate as you're doing this, and reflect, like, what can you do better next time? So, with all of this, I'm going to recap here the top 5 skills for you all in one place for storytelling and public speaking. So, the first one is brainstorming that good story, remembering the power of a good story, that you can get people to see things that they weren't there for and experience things that they themselves haven't experienced, and that it'll catch their attention span, because our attention spans are really short, and being really strategic about what you're going to say. The next one, asking tons of questions. This will help alleviate your nerves when you're getting ready to actually give your talk, and help make sure that what you're being asked to do is what you're doing. So this will really help make sure that you have all the information you need before you really dig in and write down what you're going to say and then have to change it at the end. Start with being very curious with these questions. Next is audience comes first. So tailor what you're going to say to who you're speaking to whom you're speaking. So if you're explaining a Windows update to the Chief Technology Officer at Microsoft, that would be very different than how you explain that to someone who's never seen it before. And the next one is crafting that clear message. You can use that go-to format. You can use this in a variety of different ways, but just remember that you want to be very clear and make sure that you're explicitly telling people what you're trying to say. And then lastly, watch yourself. So record your talk, do your practice, have growth mindset, be really compassionate as you're learning and growing. So that's it. Those are my tips and tricks for you. I encourage you to continue learning and learning. And Matt here has some great public speaking courses on Coursera. And we also have on our team tons of different ways that you can learn and continue growing. So take a screenshot of this here. These are different ways that Microsoft will support you getting started in your technical career or accelerating where you want to. We've got magic that we just talked about. We've got tons of free skilling and courses and learnings and Azure credits and different ways that you can engage with your community. So take a screenshot of this and make sure that you continue on your path to learning. And that is it. Thank you so much for your time and your attention, and Jaffa for having me. This has been so great. Well, with that, we will conclude here. So thank you everyone for joining and really appreciate your time and yeah, see you next time. Thanks.